Senate Bill 256 by Senator Morris provides relative to clerk of court in Orleans Parish. Provide for one clerk of the Civil District Court, Criminal District Court. Provide for payments from the Clerk of Court Expense Fund, administration by the Court of the Clerk of Court in Orleans Parish. Provide for an effective date.
Brett McMakin on your bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, members. Today I rise to present Senate Bill 256 by Senator Jay Morris. Efforts to merge or consolidate the clerk functions did not begin this session. They go back decades. For generations, policymakers have examined whether maintaining separate offices in Orleans best serves the public or whether a more unified structure would serve it better. This bill reflects that long-running discussion. Importantly, this bill does not create a new or untested model. It aligns Orleans with the model already used across Louisiana. In all other judicial districts, one clerk handles civil and criminal functions. Orleans is the outlier. This bill brings Orleans into alignment. Members, Louisiana has done this before. There was a time when Orleans had 7 tax assessors. Those offices were consolidated into one. There was a time when Orleans had 2 sheriffs, a civil sheriff and a criminal sheriff. Those offices were merged and consolidated into one successor office, with the powers and duties continuing. Government continued, services continued, the public continued to be served. This bill follows that same principle. These offices exist because the legislature created them. When the legislature creates an office by law, the legislature may amend an office by law. This bill does not eliminate the duties of the clerk. It places those duties in a consolidated and aligned structure. Members, changing the name of an office does not create a brand new office. The office is defined by its duties and its functions, not merely by its label. If those public functions remain, we are reorganizing an office, not inventing a new one from a whole new cloth. This is continuity through modernization. Members, this is a good governance bill. It is an efficiency bill. It is an alignment bill. It is grounded in history, supported by precedent, and rooted in clear legislative authority. And Mr. Speaker, we have a set of amendments I'd like to take up at this time.
Madam Clerk.
Representative McMakin offers up set number 4162.
Brett McMakin on your amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Madam Clerk. Members, I'd like to go just amendment by amendment here to make it clear what these amendments do. We're not trying to hide the ball from anybody, not trying to do anything, trying to make it crystal clear what these do. Amendment 1 is technical. Amendment 2 is technical. Amendment 3 is technical. Amendment 4 begins to clean up any other spot where we found the clerk of criminal court still listed. We're taking that out. Amendment number 5 gives the Orleans clerk back their autonomy over their employees, except for minute clerks, which are bound by the state constitution. Amendment 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, all technical. Amendment number 12, once again, cleaning up the language. Amendment number 13, once again, cleans up statutes and deletes references to the criminal clerk. 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 are all cleaning up criminal clerk language. Amendment 19, 20, 21, and 22 are all technical in nature. Amendment number 23, of all the amendments, I think this one is the biggest amendment. This amendment makes clear and explicit that this law does not reduce the current term of the office of criminal clerk. It abolishes the criminal clerk office immediately upon expiration of the current term of office and transfers all power and property of the criminal clerk to the Orleans clerk. And amendment number 24 is technical. I'll be glad to answer any questions on the amendments, Mr. Speaker.
Brett Morcell, you hit a question motion. I don't know if you have a question on the amendment or you just hit your elbow. You have no questions on the amendment? And Brett Morcell has a question on the amendment.
Thank you. Mr. McMakin, did you say a part of your amendment, I know it was a lot, most of them were technical, but did you say a part of it was to transfer the power to the civil district court?
That is amendment number 23, transfers all power and property of the criminal clerk to the Orleans clerk.
And when will that happen?
When will that happen? Same time at this one, at the end of the criminal clerk's current term. Amendment number 23.
When?
At the end of the current criminal clerk's term.
When is that? What's the date?
That date is the end of May 3rd, 2026.
So we're talking about in less than a month?
Yes,
A few
ma'am.
weeks?
Yes, ma'am.
So we're going to end the term then, and we're going to transfer the powers then? Or is this bill going to even be signed by then?
This bill becomes effective on signature of the governor.
Again, will this bill be signed by then? By May 3rd?
I would
'Cause
think so, yes, ma'am.
You would think so? We're going to be still in session, right?
And the governor will be here working.
And the governor will be here working, but you're thinking that in the next couple of weeks, we're going to have this signed, so we're going to transfer property, according to your amendment, from the criminal court to the civil court,
To the Orleans clerk.
Orleans clerk.
Yes, ma'am.
But the Orleans clerk is civil, correct?
The Orleans clerk embodies civil and criminal aspects.
Okay, so you're creating that.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I'll wait till I come back to the bill.
Thank you.
Any objections to the adoption of the amendment? Hearing no objection, the amendment is adopted. Back on the bill.
I'm finished, Mr. Speaker. Glad to answer any questions.
Rep. Marcel for a question on the bill.
Okay. Representative McMakin, are you aware that the current clerk, Calvin Duncan, has already been sworn in?
That was a ceremonial swearing in, Rep. Marcel. I am aware of that.
It's a ceremonial
Yes,
swearing
ma'am.
in. Are you aware that the people of Orleans voted him in as a criminal clerk? When they went to the ballot, they voted for him to be their criminal clerk of court. Are you aware of that?
Yes, ma'am.
You talk about other aspects of government where we merge things or where we fade out judges or tax assessors or whatever. Typically, when we're talking about even redistricting and we're talking about replacing someone or changing the number of judges or whatever, do you find that we typically wait until somebody's retiring or the end of the term, or show me a place where, can you show me a place where we've done this in the middle of someone being elected and they've never taken a seat? Can you show me one incident where that has happened?
I don't think we have found one of those, but currently the current criminal clerk's term is ending, and that's when also this position would be ending as well, back to how we have done it previously in the past.
But that particular clerk has lost the race. Is that accurate?
Yes, ma'am.
So you don't believe that with this bill, it is certainly not going, it's going against the will of the people of Orleans. They did not elect anyone else to be their criminal court judge. And clerk, I'm sorry. But if that was the case, you don't think that doing this perhaps at the end of the term that the person has been currently elected for that position is a better option?
He's never served. I don't know what the option would be. No, ma'am.
He's never served, but he was elected to serve. Let me ask it to you this way. If we eliminated your district, right before you came in here, but although you had won, how do you think you would feel about it?
I was elected in November of 2023. If the governor at that time had called a special session and the legislature had decided to eliminate District 68 as a district from serving in the House of Representatives, that would be the authority vested by the governor and by the legislative body to do that, and that would be something that I would have to be okay with.
Oh, would you be okay with it?
Yes, ma'am. That'd be the body that did, and the rules
Well,
allow it to do that.
Can we put an amendment on your bill that eliminates your seat?
If you'd like-
Effective immediately?
Please try that, but currently under the Constitution, since I'm actively serving, you can't reduce a current term.
Okay, talk to me about the payroll. How will it be handled?
Payroll will be handled by the clerk's fund.
And is this a bill for efficiency?
Yes,
I
ma'am.
think I've heard that used quite a bit. Tell me, how does this make it efficient? Are people going to lose their jobs that are currently working for the criminal clerk?
No, ma'am. On the bill,
Not? So what are we
page
saving
2
then?
of 11, that everyone that is employed by the clerk shall maintain their office through January 15th, 2027. No
So
one
they
is
have a
losing-
job until January 2027?
January 15th, 2027. No one
Okay.
can be eliminated.
And at that point, what happens to them?
They serve at the pleasure of the Orleans clerk.
No, I think you just said that they have until January, what's the date?
January 15th, 2027, they cannot be fired except for good cause shown, including but not limited to insubordination or violation of any state or federal law.
Okay, so I'm just trying to figure out, what is the rush, since you said this has been going on for years, what is the rush to replace or to delete the criminal clerk, Mr. Calvin Duncan, who has been duly elected? Why wouldn't we, as a legislature, if this was something to be for more efficiency, and we thought this was a great thing to do, why wouldn't we do it like what we do with the Court of Appeals? Like we got to wait, or the Supreme Court, any of that. Why wouldn't we handle this position differently? Why are we treating this position for clerk of Orleans Parish differently than we've ever treated? Because you just said you couldn't find it anywhere where we've done it before, right?
Yes, ma'am.
That means that it's new. And I'm trying to figure out, why are we doing this?
The current criminal clerk is not going to be in the seat. There'll be a new person filling that seat. So we are eliminating the seat. It's not about a person, it's about the seat. And we can
But it
have
is about
one
a
clerk.
person. Wouldn't you agree?
Every other parish has in the state of Louisiana, and aligning Orleans up with all other clerks.
So you believe that all of our laws should align with other states' laws? You think so?
Other states? I don't work for
Other
other
states.
states.
You-
I know that if a parish or a district is a unique outlier and no one else does it that way, then yes, we should be aligned across our state.
I guess my question is, why wouldn't an election be set, if this was something that we really wanted to do, for a future date ahead, allow this man to take the seat that the people elected him to serve in, and then run for that seat? Maybe both clerks will run for the seat, if that's the case. But what you're effectively doing is, or this bill is doing, is eliminating the criminal clerk, right? And not allowing that person to even vie for the seat. Because what you're doing is giving it to the person that's currently the clerk of civil or Orleans Parish clerk, right?
I didn't catch one of the words there. I'm sorry. You said not, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Thank you.
So I guess my concern and my question, and I'm trying to get you to explain it to me, what you're doing is, with Mr. Calvin Duncan, you are effectively saying it does not matter what the people of Orleans said about you, because this is not about you, it's about the seat. But if it's about the seat, why not give him an opportunity to run for the seat that you're creating? Because what you're doing is picking who you want to run the whole thing. And no one elected a person to run civil and criminal, as I appreciate it. So tell me, why are we doing that?
In all other jurisdictions, when you think of a clerk and you think of those duties of a clerk, and you look at the clerks and how they operate in Orleans, it is substantial how much work the civil clerk does versus the criminal clerk. And when you're combining that, all of the employees from that office are maintaining their jobs, then I think when you have the opportunity to eliminate a seat that no other parish does, you have that opportunity, and you have the responsibility to your district and your people to say,
Speaking
we
of
only
districts.
have one clerk that does this where we come from, and we should try to save the state money by not
Okay.
allowing the state to still supplement Orleans for
Thank
their
you.
uniqueness.
You brought up something that was important. You said district. Is this your district or your city? Either one.
No, ma'am.
I didn't think so. Thank you.
And I ask that we pay attention to the debate. There's a lot of people in the queue for questions, and we don't want to ask repetitive questions. Rep. Green, you're next for the question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Representative McMakin, you mentioned earlier in your question and answer session with Representative Marcel about you limiting the seat. Let me ask you, when the legislature took action many years ago to further consolidate the offices in the city of New Orleans, specifically with respect to the assessor's office and the criminal and civil sheriffs, did the legislature eliminate those positions or seek to eliminate those positions before or after the candidates for those offices were certified as results of their prior election?
Did they previously do
I
it?
guess
in-
phrase that question.
Okay,
then.
sorry. Thank you.
Did the legislature back then do what we're doing now in abolishing those offices before or after an election had ensued for the subsequent term?
Previously, when alignment and consolidation was done, it was not done after an election. Correct. Yes, sir.
It was done well in advance to give notice to the public that the current office holders would be able to serve out their terms as either civil or criminal sheriff or one of the 7 assessors. They would serve out their term. However, after a certain date, they would be consolidated into one position. Is that correct?
I don't know what well advanced means. I don't know the date specifically, but it was before.
Okay. And in this case, the state already conducted an election for the position of civil district or clerk of civil district court and clerk of criminal district court, conducted an election. The Secretary of State certified a winner of both of those elections, which we have Ms. Clerk Chelsea Napoleon Richard and Clerk-elect Calvin Duncan. They were certified the winners in the election last fall. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And to your knowledge, are you aware that the Secretary of State has issued commissions for those respective offices to those
I'm
winners?
aware of that. Legally, she is responsible to do that from LARS 4214, Section B. A public officer may take his oath of office at any time after he receives his commission or commission certificate. Certificates are usually mailed to the person prior to 2 weeks before their term begins.
That is correct. And those certificates would outline.
Rep. Green, can you pause 1 minute? The members out of time. We have 8 people in the queue for questions. I'm going to ask for an additional 15 minutes. Hearing no objections, you have an additional 15 minutes. Thank you, Representative Green.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Representative Macon, the certification or the certificate that is given to the winners of those elections, is it true that those certificates list the actual office that they will be sworn into for the subsequent term?
I have not seen a certificate to read it. I do not know.
Okay. What if I told you that they are?
I would believe you, Rep. Green. Yes, sir.
Okay. What if I told you that the clerk of criminal and civil district court lists the fact that they were elected for a defined term of clerk of criminal and civil district court? Are you aware of that?
I'm not aware. If you say it, Rep. Green, I would believe you.
All right. So under your bill, what are we doing with the position of clerk? Are we changing the name of the criminal and civil district clerk of court into one clerk position?
Yes, sir. There's one clerk, the Orleans clerk.
How would we not have to have another election for that newly created position? That, in fact, that's what we're doing.
Yeah, so I think that goes back to when the legislature creates offices. If you are amending an office by name or by duties and what they do, and it is transformationally different, that is a new position or new office, but a name change only, where all duties will continue.
Okay.
No person is being let go at either office, so the duties and the service to the people of Orleans will be maintained, then I do not think it is a wholly new spot.
How are the offices of clerk of court for civil and criminal district court funded?
Civil clerk is funded through fees paid to the court system. Criminal clerk is paid partly by fees, some by the state of Louisiana as well through our appropriations bills. Majority of the money is paid through by the city of Orleans and by the payments of civil processing fees, recording fees, along those lines.
So strictly, let's just talk about the clerk of criminal district court and how that office is funded.
Okay.
Are you aware that in the city of New Orleans' most recent operating budget that they've allocated about $5.68 million for that office?
I'm not aware, but Rep. Green, I'll take your word for it.
And are you aware that under current statute, the city is responsible for the $233,000 salary for the clerk of criminal district court? Are you aware of that?
I am aware of that.
Okay. And so when you mention that the state pays to fund that office, how much money are you talking about that the state pays?
State pays several different ways into this fee. There are retirement accounts that the state covers, structural accounts the state covers. Hopefully, Rep. McFarland or Rep. Zarang could do a better adjustment through appropriations process. But there is money that the state does pay. Yes, sir.
Are you aware that really the only state's contribution to the office of the clerk of criminal district court is a $10,000 supplemental appropriation that can be found in a most recent budget that this House passed?
So in that budget, I would agree with you that it's there, but also even on the fiscal note we have, it is acknowledged that the state general fund expenditures to the local level will be reduced by $1.18 million because of this bill.
I would submit to you, in your bill, does your bill not include minute clerks and court reporters and court criers? Is that what you're referencing?
Yes. I'm looking at the fiscal note that's attached to this bill.
Right, but in your bill, you also mention, the bill also mentions on page 6 of 11, line 4, minute clerks, court reporters, and deputy court reporters. Is that correct?
That's the section header, yes, sir.
Okay. And in your bill, that is what the fiscal note contemplates, those particular positions. Are you aware of that?
I'm not aware of that, but if you say it, Rep. Green, I'll believe
Okay.
you.
Well, assuming everything I'm telling you is true, right?
Yes, sir.
For this purpose of this exchange.
Yep, we're doing that.
And so, are you aware that those particular positions are not currently employed by the clerk of criminal district court? Are you aware of that?
They are employed by the civil clerk?
No, they're employed by the criminal district court, and the judges are responsible for the hiring and termination of those three particular classes of employees. The clerk of criminal district court has no discretion to employ those particular individuals. So under the fiscal note that is here that says that there's a shifting of costs of $1.18 million annually in the state general fund expenditures to the local level, that actually deals with those particular positions. Are you aware of that?
I am aware of that, and that was what I mentioned in the amendment, that Louisiana Constitution Article 5, Section 28, that the minute clerks are still approved by the district judges. And reading the fiscal note, and I trust our staff and the hard work they do, I'm just going to go off of their words that the bill shifts 1.18 annually from the state fund.
Overall, that's exactly what your bill does, but for the purpose of debate, and so the members here and the folks who are listening at home understand that we're talking about four entities, right? We're talking about the clerk of criminal district court in that office. We're talking about the clerk of civil district court in that office. We're talking about civil district court, and we're talking about criminal district court, and they're four separate entities. And I will respectfully tell you that the clerk's offices are not funded with state dollars. Those clerk's offices are funded entirely either by the city of New Orleans on the criminal side or on the civil side. They're funded through self-generating fees of filing fees that, as your bill states, goes into a fund of, right, the clerk's salary fund and the judicial expense fund, which is split, what, is it 50-50?
It will be 40-60.
And so we're further reducing that split. 40% to the clerk of civil district court and 60% to the judges. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
So if you're reducing the funding based on a 50-50 split, now a 60-40 split, and you're also taking in now the employees who work under now the clerk of criminal district court, how does the math work when you're reducing the funding that clerk Chelsea gets, Napoleon Richard gets, but you're adding additional employees that she is responsible for? How does that funding work?
The funding, can you be more specific for me? I'm sorry. I know we talked about this yesterday too. I'm trying to follow.
Right, okay. The current structure of funding right now as it exists is for the civil clerk's office. The fees are self-generated, right? And through law, the clerk is supposed to take 50% of those fees and put it into the clerk's salary fund. From that fund, the clerk pays herself and the salaries and benefits of her employees. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And the other 50% goes into the judicial expense fund. Is that correct?
Okay,
That's
yes, sir.
controlled by the judges.
Following you? Yes, sir.
All right. With your bill, and you're merging now the offices of civil and criminal clerk, let's assume that the current, right now, clerk Darren Lombard has employees who are classified as deputy clerks. When this merger occurs, who pays for Clerk Lombard's deputy clerks that are currently working in criminal district court?
The clerk's salary fund will be the main fund for the Orleans clerk.
Okay, so that will encompass the new employees that we're moving over who are working in criminal district court now under the umbrella of, I guess, the clerk of civil district court. Is
The
that what you're
Orleans
telling me?
clerk, and then there will be, on page 7 of 11, there is also the clerk court expense fund, which takes in money that comes from any criminal activities as well. That fund will be at use for the Orleans clerk
Okay,
as well.
that leads me to my next question. How much money is that? Or do you anticipate what that would be on an annual basis to fund that particular fund?
The clerk court expense fund that comes from criminal activities, to the best of my knowledge, that whole fund kind of apparatus is under $1 million. The other one, the clerk's salary fund, is the one that has in excess of $25 million in it right now.
But I would assume if you're bringing in new employees, right, that the current clerk in civil district court is not budgeted for, you're going to eventually, over time, that number would diminish. Is that correct?
Eventually, over time, the plan is with alignment for that to go down. Yes, sir.
So unless there's an increase in filings, how can you guarantee in 10 years we're not putting an unfunded mandate on the city of New Orleans? Because you're reducing, she's going from 50% now to 40%.
I can't guarantee anything in 10 years, Rep. Green, but I will say that looking at the numbers and the financial audit of the civil district court and the amount of money they have, and even our former representative that serves on the city council talked about one of the clerks being Scrooge McDuck and having so much money in their coffers available to them that I think, doing the math, I think they're going to be okay.
But you can't say that with certainty.
Can't say anything with certainty, but I will say I think, as an LSU MBA financial advisor, I think they're going to be okay.
But let me ask you this. Our fiscal notes that we usually get, right? Aren't they projected years out in advance, at least 5 years?
This one is, yes, sir.
Can you read to me, well, I'll read to you, rather.
Okay.
Expenditure explanation. This bill will decrease statutorily dedicated expenditures by approximately $27,300 and local expenditures, which is City of New Orleans, by $233,000 annually. This bill also shifts $1.18 million annually in state general fund expenditures to the local level. That is the City of New Orleans. local expenditures may experience a net increase, but these experiences may be affected by further possible cost reductions, efficiencies, and/or consolidation expenditure increases. So we're going to shift the cost burden onto the city of New Orleans on something that may or may not happen. Is that what we're doing?
Well, we definitely are making it less expensive by the 233 annually, no doubt, 5 years out, of course, with that one. And then the consolidation efforts that we are taking are also involved with every other parish and district not supporting, by financial reasons, only Orleans that we don't get anywhere else in the state. That's why we are shifting it over to Orleans, and the civil clerk right now fund that has $25 million in it that I know other clerks don't have around the state. We're saying as a state of Louisiana, we're no longer going to be doing that. So
Okay.
it's a dual. Orleans doesn't have to pay as much with the 233. They will incur the state general fund expenditures at the local level. And then as that note says, and I think it's a great sentence, these increases could be affected by further possible cost reductions, efficiencies, and/or consolidation expenditures increases. I think that's crystal clear what the bill is trying to do.
And that's just what we're talking about. It's just simply the positions of minute clerks, court reporters, and deputy court reporters, because that's what the state pays for, in addition to the judge's salaries.
And that would also be, for the city of New Orleans, I think, and for the Orleans clerk now. If you have currently, if you have the two clerks and each clerk has a secretary, an administrative assistant, and a chief of staff, if you now just have one Orleans clerk, does a person that doesn't have a position still need a chief of staff and an assistant and retirement benefits and all the things that come with those? I would say they do not. And any transfer that the state is doing over to the local level, the locals, I think, will find a way to come together, figure that out, because we have all seen that the city of Orleans, the mayor has been here several times during our short tenure this year asking for money. They just celebrated 100 days in office, I believe, and are working hard on efficiencies and effectiveness, and now hopefully more will come to the clerk's office.
What does your bill do with the Consolidated Judicial Expense Fund?
It talks about it. Let me find it for you.
Okay.
But that is mainly for, it listed here, it talks about it, Rep. Green, but this bill does not do as much with that one as another bill does. You're talking about page 2?
Yeah.
Okay. This bill mentions that part there because of the other bills that are also transferring and aligning offices. It does that there. Senate Bill 217, Rep. Green, is really more about the Judicial Expense Fund.
So the fiscal note contemplates something that hasn't happened yet, but is referenced in another bill. Is that what you're telling me?
I think it references this bill because it mentions it, but a fiscal note always references the future. I mean, that's what it does.
Rep. Green, 1 minute. The members out of time. We have 9 people in the queue for questions. I'm going to ask for an additional 15 minutes. Hearing no objections, we have an additional 15 minutes. I'm going to ask that you please pay attention so we don't ask repetitive questions. Rep. Green, thank you.
I appreciate that, Mr. Speaker. Thank you so much.
Rep. Green, if you don't mind.
Yes.
Thank you, Ms. Karen. The fiscal note is also talking about the court reporters who are paid by the courts and all other courts. Only in New Orleans do they get state general funds for the court reporters, is also what's listed there in the fiscal note for you.
Right, because those are paid out of the district court and not out of the clerk's office, because as of right now, you'd agree that the only employees that the clerks employ are their deputy clerks. Is that fair to say?
And other staff members besides, you're mentioning all the staff, correct?
Yeah.
Can you say that? Yes, sir.
Okay. Let me make sure I've covered everything. That is all I have. Thank you, Representative McMakin, for answering my questions, and thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Rep. Green.
Rep. Boyd for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Rep. McMakin, you made some reference to New Orleans having 7 assessors and then combining to 1, being reduced to 1. Did you not?
I did, yes, ma'am.
How long did that process take for them to combine from 7 to 1?
I do not know.
4 years. You also mentioned the combining of our civil sheriff's office and our criminal sheriff's office. How long did that process take?
I do not know.
4 years for them to prepare, to get staffing ready, to get the business ready. Do you know the detriment that will happen to the criminal court system from consolidating these 2 offices, but basically no preparation? Are you not concerned about people's Sixth Amendment right being trampled over here, right to a speedy trial?
No, ma'am, I'm not. We're maintaining all the employees as they go across, and I think because all the other districts, the clerks do it with civil and criminal, they can reach out to them at any time. I'm finishing my
Because you
statement to
constantly talk about what happens in every other district. Not one of them were forced to combine a civil and a criminal at one time with no preparation for it. You made references that this has happened before in New Orleans, but it did not happen overnight. It took 4 years to ensure that those offices functioned correctly under that 1. This will definitely be a hindrance on the criminal court system, don't you think?
No, ma'am, I don't.
So you don't think that they're going to have to postpone hearings? You don't think that they're going to have to postpone and reschedule bond hearings? You don't think that trials are going to have to be postponed and rescheduled?
No, ma'am, I don't.
So you honestly believe that they can combine these 2 offices with employees, over 100 employees each, in less than a month?
Yes, ma'am.
When it took 4 years for the ones that you gave the examples for.
I don't know when the 4 years took, but I think nowadays, and having the support, I would think, of the other clerks around the area and the technology advances we have, I don't see that being a problem.
So in what way don't you see it be a problem with the technology advancements? What do you think can happen with that?
I think we're going to get it done.
I'm sorry?
I think we're going to get it done.
How?
Because
That's
the
what I'm
systems,
trying to ask.
yeah, the systems.
Because everywhere else at combined places, it took years to ensure that this was set up correctly. How? What is in this bill that will tell us how it will be a smooth transition from 2 to 1?
I don't think there's anything specifically that talks about the smoothness of it, except for the fact that no employee or position is leaving. Everyone that operates how they operate now will be there on May 4th or May 5th. They're going to be sitting at that
They may be there, but they will be operating under a different regimen right now. So they all have to become accustomed to a new way.
Representative Boyd, if you don't mind, when you ask a question, please give him the opportunity to answer it. That way we're not speaking. Oh, thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I'm sorry, Rep. Boyd, could you repeat the last one?
I was
Thank you.
waiting for you to tell me how.
How they're going to do it?
What's the plan? Yes. Other than
Plan is for the Orleans clerk to get in there, get to work, have the same employees, and then also, if there are any problems seen by the Orleans clerk, then we allow on page 2, the clerk of the office of the consolidated clerk may hire temporary employees or hire contractors to assist in the transition using unrestricted funds of the clerk until June 30th, 2027. And I can say in my own business, we transitioned broker-dealers, which is how we operate our business. We had someone come in, and a week later, we were up and running. We never lost anything.
In your own business?
Yes, ma'am.
What business is that?
Financial advisor and lawyer.
And how many employees do you have?
We have about 15.
Okay, we're talking about 2 separate entities that each have nearly 100 employees. So you comparing your business, you can't possibly think that's the same thing.
I'm just telling you an example that has worked.
That's not a great example if you only have 15 employees. And
Okay.
you're not being forced to consolidate anything, right? This is your choice. This is not the choice of anyone from New Orleans. No one from New Orleans was ever consulted, spoke to about how this transition will be, how it won't be a hindrance on the citizens of New Orleans, on the judges in criminal court, on the attorneys in criminal court. There's nothing in place to show me where this will be a smooth transition for them. All the research I've done, it seems like it's going to take work, and I'm trying to figure out what is in this bill that will help us ensure that we don't trample on people's Sixth Amendment right.
I think you'll get the help. If the clerk needs help, she can get the help. Outside of currently having people in the office that are going to maintain their roles and positions.
I'm sorry, say that again?
Outside of the people that are maintaining their current roles and positions, which is everybody but one position, that if the clerk of Orleans now needs to hire people to come in and help, if others are needed, they are allowed to do that.
And you think that won't take time and have things pushed back, rescheduled, if they have to bring in someone else who definitely will need to be there to assist her now with 200 employees? You don't see a delay in hearings being canceled, trials being canceled and rescheduled? You think it will be a smooth transition from hiring new employees to assist her now with taking on an additional office? You think that can happen in what, a week?
The new employees would only be needed if the transition needs help. The transition may not need help.
The transition will need help. You have a civil district court clerk now assuming the responsibilities of a criminal district clerk. She will definitely need to hire new people to help her with this transition, and that part is the part I'm concerned about. People's Sixth Amendment right here, right to a speedy trial, just that part. Constitutionally, you don't think that there'll be an issue?
No, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Rep. Mina.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Representative, when you thought about filing this bill, I know you know historically that Orleans merged the civil and criminal sheriffs. Why didn't you think about following that same program of making sure that no duly elected person, as Calvin Duncan is, would actually not be disenfranchised? Why didn't we want to wait until maybe after his possibly completing his first term so that we could implement these changes?
Senator Morris filed this bill, Rep. Mina. I'm just here presenting it, but I will take credit that I'm down here, is that the current criminal clerk position will be coming to an end. And like we've mentioned before, this is unique, but every time we've done something like this, it's at the end of a term, and this term has now ended for the previous criminal clerk.
Okay, so now...
Coming to an end, excuse me. Coming to an
Right,
end.
so Ms. Chelsea Napoleon, she did run for civil district clerk. Whenever we sign up for a particular office, we're running for state representative or state senate or whatever, we run for that position and we know exactly the terms, what we're going to be doing, who we're going to be serving. Ms. Napoleon did not run to be a combo clerk. Do you think that it's fair to change the parameters of what the job that she will be doing before she's had a chance to even be sworn in for that new job?
She's been there already, and I think that because you have a clerk system that is the same across the state, I think always it comes up, Orleans is unique and different, and clerks are aware of that, and I think that she will be able to handle this new role, and if she is unable to do that, she can resign, she cannot run again, but I think, just as I mentioned in my opener, I think that we are changing a title and the duties and the services, because everyone from the criminal side is a part of the Orleans clerk. No duties and no services will be gone, and so I think that everyone will be okay with that process.
All right, thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Representative Dana Henry.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Rep. McMakin, you referenced in your opening to this bill the merger of the assessor's office. Did you not?
The tax assessors, yes, sir.
Yeah. Do you know how that merger occurred? Was it by legislative action?
I'm not aware.
Would you be shocked if I told you that the voters of Orleans Parish voted to merge 7 assessors into one?
They voted on it, and then I'm sure there would have had to have been some sort of resolution or proclamation or some legislation to merge them, correct?
That is correct.
Okay?
Do you know which occurred first?
No, sir.
Do you know, are you familiar with revised statute 13:5581?
No, sir. Off the top of my head, I'm not. No, sir. Can you please tell me what that is?
It was enacted in 2006 by this legislative body, but it gave the voters of Orleans Parish the right to decide whether they can have a consolidated assessor's office. Do you know how long it took to consolidate that office?
If that's the same one as Rep. Boyd mentioned, 4 years?
It took 4 years, correct. So why would you think, or your colleague in the Senate think, that a 4-year period to transition the merger of offices could be done reasonably in 3 weeks?
Because instead of merging offices, this is having a unified, aligned, one clerk, but all the positions and all the work is still maintaining where they are and what they're doing throughout the end of the year.
You mentioned that you have an investment company, correct?
Yes, sir.
You have a law practice, correct?
Sir.
Do you have any IT or computers in there?
I'm sorry, say it again?
Do you have IT or computers in there, Mr. Rep. McMakin?
Yes, sir.
If you built an office in New Orleans, how were those computers going to communicate?
Through the internet?
Through the internet? How long do you think it would take to make your computers in your Baton Rouge office communicate with your new office in New Orleans?
Instantaneously?
Instantly.
Yes.
Do you have the name of the IT contractor that we can use to make that happen?
Google?
Google would allow you to transfer all of your files to a new office in New Orleans instantly.
Is it digital or physical?
Rep. McMakin, does your bill consider the implementation of IT, building, files, all of those things in this particular bill?
I would say yes, it does, with the amendment set that the Orleans clerk is taking over all the property and everything of both clerks. Yes, sir.
Can you point me to the line and page of your amendments where it specifically lays out where IT will be transferred, building equipment will be transferred, furniture will be transferred? Is it in there, or is this just a bill in concept only?
Amendment set, page 4 of 5, beginning on line 37. Immediately thereafter, the authority, functions, duties, and responsibilities of the office of the clerk of criminal district court for the parish of Orleans, and all of the books, papers, records, monies, actions, and other property of every kind and description, movable or immovable, real or personal, possessed, controlled, or used by the office of clerk of criminal district court for the parish of Orleans shall be transferred and owned, possessed, controlled, and used by the clerk of civil district court for the parish of Orleans, who shall thereafter be referred to as the clerk of court for the parish of Orleans.
And does it say how long that transfer would take, or it just initiates that transfer?
It happens whenever the bill becomes effective, immediately.
So what happens in the process of what you just read actually being implemented? How are the courts, with the support of the clerks, supposed to continue to operate efficiently if all your bill does is grant authority and function, but it does not address how and when it's going to actually be implemented?
I don't know what needs to be implemented outside of every single person that is working currently in either clerk system will still be working through the end of the year.
Have you practiced in Orleans Parish Civil Court, Mr. McMakin, Rep. McMakin?
Sure.
Have you practiced in Orleans Criminal Court, Rep. McMakin?
No, sir.
Have you ever been inside of those buildings?
I have, yes, sir.
You have.
Yes, sir.
If you haven't practiced, you've gone in to just observe?
There was a show shot in New Orleans, and I wanted to see where the show was shot, so I went, yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Okay, members, the member's out of time. We still have 4 people in the queue for questions. I'm going to ask for one more additional 15 minutes. Hearing no objections, we're going to ask for an additional 15 minutes. Representative Murray, do you still have a question, or are you waving? You're going to come back. Okay, Representative Terry Landry.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Rep. McMakin, do you believe that timing plays a part in what we do here?
It can, yes, sir.
Do you think it's important that we have the right timing when we file certain bills on certain issues?
Can't control your timing always. Having the right timing is great, but if you don't have the right timing, that's unfortunate sometimes too.
Do you think that the timing on this particular bill appears to be in poor taste or unfortunate?
I think the timing of this bill is accurate when a position is coming to an end. That's the opportunity then to remove that position. On the other side, the unique situation of this bill and the timing of it, where we have a person that has been elected and before they serve on the timing of it, is unique. So I think in this situation, you have both sides of the spectrum on the timing.
Okay, and you mentioned the term of a position coming to an end. So is this particular bill creating a new position?
I don't think it is creating a new position. We are titling the position differently, and the duties, services, and functions of both clerks under the Orleans clerk title will stay the same.
So you're still going to call it the Orleans Civil Clerk of Court?
No, sir, it's going to be called the Orleans Clerk of Court.
And there are different duties and responsibilities that will be associated with that new title.
It'll be to maintain all duties and responsibilities of the clerks.
So you're transferring the duties and responsibilities of the criminal clerk to the civil clerk.
They're being transferred to the Orleans Clerk of Court.
So isn't that creating a new position?
No, sir, I don't think so.
But if I have a new title with new responsibilities and new duties that the person who currently holds the civil clerk did not run on and was not elected to, shouldn't there be an election for a new title with new responsibilities and new duties?
I don't think so, no, sir.
Can you care to explain why you feel like that's not necessary?
Some of the several things I've mentioned in the opener and whatnot of that the services to the people will be maintained. The people are not going to know any difference of a service. I don't think the judges, the lawyers, anyone will. So the services are maintaining. Changing a title does not create just a new position.
Is the current civil clerk in favor of this legislation?
I believe she testified at both committee hearings with a white card because she is an elected official. I have not heard an exact yes or no from her on either side.
Have you asked her if she is willing to take on these new responsibilities and duties, since that's not what she ran on?
I did not ask her, no, sir.
Do you know if Senator Morris has had that conversation?
I do not know.
Thank you. What does this bill say to the over 38,000 voters in Orleans Parish who just recently elected Mr. Duncan to serve in this capacity?
Yeah, I've had to think about that one. I've thought about my own election and the people that supported me through that election, that if the governor and the legislature came back in late November, December of 2023 and eliminated any one of our positions because the law allows that to happen, and that is the legal process to do that, that the legislature creates positions and the legislature then can amend, combine, and align positions, that it would be very difficult for that. But I think in that process, I would respect that that is the way our laws are written. And maybe going forward in the future, maybe there should be something in there that says in that interim period that maybe that should not be part of the process. But currently, that is the legal process we have in this state, and that is a process that we must all abide by, that's the state we serve and the laws that we are under.
So let me change course a little bit. Do you believe that when a person has been exonerated after serving time in prison, that the system has wronged them?
Say it again.
Do you believe that a person who serves time in prison and is then exonerated, do you think that the system has failed them?
If a person has been legally found to be exonerated through the court process by a judge, I think that the system failed someone and something somewhere along the way, yes.
But do you feel like it failed that person that served time in prison and then was legally exonerated?
Yeah, I think that's why we have a law, correct me if I'm wrong, that if that is found the case, you are allowed to get some money back, I think, for time served. I think that's correct. And so I think we as a society have recognized that if legally speaking, the court has determined factually and what it may be that you are exonerated, which is a specific term, that I think you are given compensation for your time, and us as a society has recognized that.
Do you feel that if a person is elected into an office and never gets to take that oath of office, that the system has failed them?
The system being what?
Our system, the legislative system, the judicial system, the democracy, the system of democracy, has that failed them?
Yeah, I don't think in this case, I do think that. No, sir.
Okay. And can you tell me, how long has Senator Morris been in office?
I don't know. I'm sorry. Collectively over 10 years, I would think.
So he wasn't just elected in November of 2025?
I don't believe so. No, sir.
So can you speak to why now? Why now this bill? Why not 10 years ago? There were 2 clerks 10 years ago. There were 10 clerks 5 years ago. There were 2 clerks 2 years ago. Why now?
I don't want to put words in his mouth, so I'll speak on my behalf presenting this bill for you, that the idea of having one consolidated and aligned clerk goes back decades, even longer than you and I have been alive. And even back to 2011 and 2012, when they brought the bills to do away with the consolidation efforts of the 2006 bill. And so when the timing, I think, came up that the current clerk was not going to continue on for the criminal side, that seat now is a vacant seat. And traditionally, to Rep. Green's point that he was bringing up, you align and consolidate when a person in office is not in that seat anymore. And I think that led to this bill being presented this year.
But Rep. McMakin, there is no vacancy. Is there a vacancy right now for the criminal clerk?
The incumbent will not be in the seat. Yes, sir.
And when does that go into effect?
The end of May 3rd.
Okay. Thank you, Rep. McMakin. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Rep. Landry.
Rep. Murray for a question.
Rep, what clerks do we currently have in Orleans Parish?
I'm sorry.
What clerks do we currently have in Orleans Parish?
You have the 2 clerks, criminal and civil.
And you keep referencing after May 3rd, there will be only 1 clerk. And what's that title going to be?
Orleans Clerk of Court.
Has anyone in Orleans Parish voted for Orleans Clerk of Court?
I believe when they voted for the current clerks, the 2 of them, you're voting for now the name change of the new clerk will be the Orleans Clerk. So they voted for the operations and the duties, and those are all going to be maintained by the Orleans Clerk.
I can tell you as an Orleans Parish voter, no one has voted for an Orleans Parish clerk. You don't think that you're going to embroil the state in endless litigation behind this?
Say it again? I'm sorry.
No one in Orleans has voted for an Orleans Parish clerk. As an Orleans Parish voter who has a 99%, voter efficiency rate, I can tell you none of us have voted for that. You don't think you're going to embroil the state in litigation for years to come? We keep talking about efficiency.
Litigation for years to come. I don't think it'll be years to come. I've already heard from some colleagues that litigation is expected. And on the question of constitutionality, I believe the Supreme Court will take this position up very efficiently.
How much do you think that litigation will cost the state of Louisiana?
I don't know.
Just give me a ballpark. I know you practice law as well.
Filing fees, I would say over $100. Under, I really don't know. You tell me, 10,000? I'm not sure.
I'm not the one presenting
I don't
here.
know. That hasn't happened yet. I haven't seen the bill. Don't know what that would be. There will be money involved, yes.
Have attorneys who work in these courts asked for this?
Have attorneys that worked in these courts asked for this? Yes, actually, yes.
Who?
So I was appointed by the Speaker to be special projects of the judiciary, and one of those roles was to go out there and talk to lawyers and talk to judges and talk to practitioners about things that we could do as a legislature that are unique and make us different around the state. And I will say that talking to people, and I wish I had kept every name and every person. I do. Because this debate, I think I could put those people's names all over this because it came back time and time again. Orleans has 2 courts. Orleans has 2 clerks. The appeals courts have too many. The justice of the peaces are all over the place. So yes, I do not know their names. I give you my word, Orleans lawyers have said yes.
Okay.
Now, is it any Orleans lawyer in this chamber? I don't think so. But Orleans lawyers, yes.
So have victims' families asked for this?
Not that I've heard of, no, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Rep. Mandy Landry for a question.
Hey, I just have one question. We went through the amendments before you went up there, but the substantive 123,
Okay?
who asked you to do that? Is that the one with changes the date?
Who asked me to do that? No one asked me to do that. I would say after sitting in Judiciary Committee, we thought that, I think it was Rep. Green actually brought up some of those points on the timing, and I thought it was a decent point that he brought up about making it crystal clear that reducing a term is not allowed in the Constitution. So we wanted to make that as clear as possible, and that is the best we can do at this. So it was sitting in committee that I was in when Senator Morris presented this bill, and we came to a conclusion that that's the language that would be best.
Yes, thanks to Rep. Green for that. Did you speak to Senator Morris about the amendment?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
Did you speak to anyone who works for the governor about it?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
Okay, thanks.
Rep. Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Rep. McMakin, is Orleans a home rule charter?
I don't know, sir, I don't know. Yes, I'm hearing yes from a lot of people. Yes.
So Orleans, you've been advised that Orleans is a home rule charter?
Okay,
So
yes.
how do we, and I guess I'm trying to wrestle with, how do we not see this as the legislature nullifying a duly elected individual?
You have to give me more specifics on that question, I'm sorry.
How do people not see this instrument as nullifying a duly election, a fairly qualified election that took place?
I guess I would have to say, and I'll be honest, I do not know what the charter has to do with this answer or question, so if I'm off, please tell me. But that this position is legislatively by our body created, and so it is unique. I have said that, it is a unique time, but until that person's term begins, changes can be made, and that's what's happening here.
So so this clerk, is it just this clerk that's created by the legislature, or all clerks of court created by the legislature?
All clerks in the state.
Are created by the legislature.
And I believe more specifically by the Constitution, if I have any scholars out there want to help me, but the Constitution and revised statute.
Right, okay. So once a candidate is elected, right, has this election been certified? Do we know if this specific election has been certified yet?
I believe the Secretary of State has certified this election, yes, sir.
And so I saw some information that indicated that Mr. Duncan has received his commission. Is that not correct?
I do not know of that specifics. I do not know that.
So once you get certified, that's when the commissions have been issued. Or that's when you get commissioned. And so the election has been certified. This sounds a lot like the underlying essence of Marbury versus Madison. This gentleman has had he's been duly elected, and if we pass this bill, will this not void those votes?
So voiding them to where those people that voted in that election, that office holder will not then take office, if that is your definition of that, then that would be what is happening. But the legislature creates positions, the legislature can modify and align positions before someone takes that position, because once that happens, then the Constitution says you can't reduce anything. So until that position is taken up, then there is the opportunity for the legislature to make changes.
So who sets the actual election? Does the state set that election? Are we the ones that go out and set the date and the parameters and things of that for the actual election?
I would have to ask the Secretary of State, but usually, being on House and Governmental, the Secretary of State has some dates that she has in mind that can work with all the other elections, trying to work with the locals. I believe it's a joint effort.
But we set that election. And so if this was about because I've heard the efficiency argument, and I'd give you the benefit of the doubt on the efficiency argument, why wouldn't we have done this before?
Yeah, I think Senator Morris mentioned that in committee. I believe his exact words were, "The timing stinks." I think were his exact words. So, and knowing the perfect world of everything, back to, I believe, Rep. Landry's question of timing, if it's best and if it's good, and I think I'm getting pretty close to what he was asking about. If you knew in a perfect world of everything that was going to happen, you would know when to time things. And so this is just the timing of this bill, knowing that the current clerk will not be in that office going forward.
Okay, I only got 2 more questions.
Rep. Jackson, 1 minute. Members, we have 2 people in the queue still for questions, both from the area of New Orleans. So I'm going to ask for an additional 10 minutes. Hearing no objection, I'm going to give an additional 10 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have 2 more questions for you. So now that Mr. Duncan has had his election, he's run, he's been elected, the election has been certified. Do you believe he has a vested interest in that office now that he has won?
To start the term, no, I don't think so.
So you do not believe he has a vested interest in the office that he was elected to?
In the current posture of a bill going through the legislature created the office and can make changes. I think the legislative body is the one that can do that.
So Louisiana has typically, and courts have typically said that election laws and how we run elections should be done and interpreted and construed in various ways, but if anything, it should be done to promote candidacy rather than defeat it. Do you see this bill as ultimately defeating a candidate?
I don't see it that way, no, sir.
You don't see this bill as defeating a candidate?
I don't see it
Why
that way.
not?
Back to numerous things I've said, that the legislature creates offices. Up until someone is serving in that position, the legislature can modify, align, and amend that office.
So did he win or did he lose if this bill passes? If this bill is to be adopted and signed into law, did Mr. Duncan win or did he lose the election?
Mr. Duncan won his election.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Rep. McMakin.
Rep. Knox for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Representative McMakin, I'm just trying to process everything that has been said. Are you aware that many of these courts are in my district and it shared with Representative Mena?
I would take your word, yes, sir.
So can you help me and him, as well as my other colleagues in the Orleans delegation? Why was there no heads up as it relates to nullifying the 38,000 people who voted for this office?
By heads up, pre-talk before Senator Morris filed his bill?
Why was no one in our delegation informed about this bill, consulted about this bill, given a heads up that this bill was coming, invited to have a seat to discuss this bill, to talk about other precedents for this bill?
I can't speak to why Senator Morris did this one. I have another bill, so I'll be glad to speak about that one, is that Orleans is getting state money. And if I, in my district and in my parish, if I had one thing that was unique and different from every other district and every other parish in the state, and if in my district and in my parish, if I had one thing and one unique thing that the state was paying for, that the taxpayers of every other parish and every other district paid for, I know how difficult that would be for me in my parish and my district to bring a bill that seemed like I was going against my district or my parish. So I think it takes someone from outside of that area that has a state vested interest with taxpayers who pay into that system of why are we paying the taxes that specifically go towards another district and another parish where it has not done that in any other place. And do I think, and Senator Morris has said this, do I think or does he think that we would have any constructive criticism of, yes, we're going to allow you to do this, we're not going to be against this, we're going to help you? I don't think that would happen because how tough that would be. And I know you and Senator Mina fully respect you. We've had discussions, and I appreciate that for both of y'all. I know how tough this is, but I also know that I came here to do things for my residents in my district and in my parish, and I think that this is what needs to finally be done. That's a long answer of why.
I appreciate that answer. So with that logic, then that would mean that the members of the Orleans delegation could target many of the smaller rural parishes that benefits from the revenue that our parish generate. Wouldn't you agree?
I would say only if that area is different from every other member's district and parish, then yes, I would support you to file a bill to do that for those other people's areas. But if that's not the case, I don't view it as targeting. I view it as for what's fair for the taxpayers in my district and for all the taxpayers of the state of Louisiana.
So what I hear you saying that it is okay, we're setting a new precedent to target other members' district without notifying them, without communicating with them, without engaging with them whatsoever.
You say the word target. I don't view it as a target. I view it as an opportunity to do something that has been decades in the talking about, that should have been, was actually promoted and done and passed to be done until it was undone many years later. So I don't view it as a target. I view it as the rest of the state is putting the one unique area in line with the rest of every single member's clerk of court.
You use the word unique a lot. Are you aware that New Orleans is unique insofar that it has at least 18 to 19 tourists every year?
I'm sure
and that many of those tourists are arrested?
If that's the case, Baton Rouge, I believe, has upwards of 9 million, and so we are second unique, and yet we don't have 2 clerks. We do it just fine with 1.
Are you aware that many of those individuals are crowded in jail and waiting for court?
Well, then I hope you would support our courts bill, but I don't think the clerk's bill is going to have, like I've mentioned to Rep. Boyd, I don't think that's going to unexpedite or expedite anyone that is currently sitting in a jail in New Orleans.
So you reference chaos. As you're aware, New Orleans is already in financial straits. You acknowledge that. And you also acknowledge that the clerk of civil court had given testimony. In her testimony, she had indicated that the expectation upon her going forward is to assume the criminal clerk of court. And from her testimony, her initial assessment was that there seems to be some concerns in this organization. And in her testimony, are you aware, she indicated that this current bill and its posture reduces the funding, but increases her workload.
I'm not sure if after the amendment set, she would still feel that way if that's how she felt, but we have acknowledged the fact that that clerk system has a well surplus of cash available. And so I think financially speaking, I think she is going to be financially just fine.
Can you explain or walk me through how she will be just fine?
Yeah, according to the last audit, cash and cash equivalents on hand, $19.7 million. Total assets on hand, almost $25 million. And I know a lot of clerks around the state would love to have $25 million available to get to work.
And that is to fund both criminal and civil? Because it's mine, is that to fund both civil and criminal?
That will be the funds to use for both clerks, excuse me.
So have you or Senator Morris discussed the transition?
Have we discussed the transition? We've discussed
bill
parts
passes.
of it. Yes, sir.
Can you help me understand it? Because it's my appreciation, and it has been noted, that it takes at least 4 years to do a successful transition, and the expectation is for this transition to happen within 3 weeks. And it has been noted that previous consolidations took about 4 years, but it was not mentioned that those consolidations involved studies, some of which I shared with you. Was there any study done as it relates to the elimination of this position?
There were some previous ones that, some studies and reports, I believe it was 1961 by the BRG Group.
1961?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
2013, 2006, that several articles and groups talk about the uniqueness of having the only parish with 2 clerks and how the alignment would put them in a place with all other clerks around the parish.
What study was that?
I'd have to find it for you. By the BRG Group, the one you sent me, there's a previous one that talks about that.
Are you conflating that study with the juvenile justice study that took place in 2013?
I don't think so. There's lots of studies on Orleans out there.
I don't think there's a study as it relates to this current position. But thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Members, the member's out of time. I'm going to ask for an additional just 5 minutes because we still have one member in the queue to ask questions from the district. Thank you. An additional 5 minutes. Rep. Taylor for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I only have this question. Is there any legal precedent for overturning an election when a person has already been elected? What's your legal precedent for doing this?
The legal precedent for this is that the legislature creates offices and the legislature can amend and align offices.
What statute are you referring to?
I don't know if that's a statute or a general principle of
So
jurisprudence.
you don't have an answer. You don't know what the answer is, but you say that there's precedent for doing it.
Here we go. It's in the Constitution. Constitution, Article 5, Section 32.
And do you know of any other instance in Louisiana where a person was elected to an office, certified to be elected to that office, and then his job was eliminated? Do you have any precedent for that?
We do not, no ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you.
Rep. Miller for the question, for a question.
Yep, quick question. Hey, what were you explaining when you said the budgets were like 20 million and 17 million? Is that the clerk?
Yes, sir.
Was that self-generated funds?
Yeah, yes, sir.
Okay. You also mentioned, just to be clear, one of the reasons why you're bringing this bill, well, Senator Morris, is because taxpayers like you and I that's outside of New Orleans are paying some of this clerk's expenses?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Would you be amenable for an amendment that states if New Orleans paid for the expenses of this clerk, that he would be able to serve in office?
If you brought that amendment today, I would object to it. If Orleans themselves wants to start paying more of this office, absolutely, Metro Council, or not Metro Council, City Council and Mayor, please go do that. But I don't think the state should be involved anymore doing that. So I wouldn't want to do a statute for that.
Could they create the position without coming through the state?
Say it again?
Could they recreate the position without coming through the state?
They could, as far as I know, they could not recreate a true, what we call the clerk position, but they could, under this actual law, you could have a deputy criminal clerk that would be done through the clerk of Orleans office. They can do that themselves without having to come to the legislature.
Thank you, Representative.
Okay, members, I want to thank you for giving the member an hour and 15 minutes for questions. We do have an amendment now, Madam Clerk.
Representative Green offers up set number 4414.
Representative Green on your amendment. Rep. Green.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, members. I know there's a lot of angst with what we're doing here. Look, if it's the will of this body to merge the clerk's offices into one position, that's perfectly your right to do so. But I think we ought to take a very measured and delicate approach to how we do that. What's concerning to me is that we are literally 10 days away from the new clerk taking the oath of office on May 4th. 10 days away. With the lengthy amendment set that Representative McMakin put on the bill, it's clear that there are some concerns with how this bill works. So there's nothing wrong with taking additional time to allowing this to occur. I have here in my hands Act 621 that was passed in the 2006 regular legislative session that merged the assessors, the courts, the sheriffs, all into one. That bill was 47 pages. That bill took effect in 4 years from the date of passage of this bill. What my amendment simply does, it says at 11:59 p.m. on May 5th of 2030 is when this bill takes effect. That's it. It just kicks the can down the road for another 4 years. It gives the legislature plenty of time to figure out what the unintended consequences that we don't even know about. How many times have we passed a bill rushing through, later to come back and find out we did something wrong? Happened this year, right, with the Duncan misdemeanors that we have to fix. It happens time and time again. The city of New Orleans is the engine that drives the train of this state, represents 1/3 of the state's economy. We have Taylor Swift, Super Bowls, Final Fours, All-Star games, all coming to the city. I think whatever action we take, we ought to make sure that we get it right. And the manner in which this bill has been rushed, and the manner in which amendments have been dropped at the last minute, should give us all pause for concern. I ask you that you adopt this amendment, and it gives us time to take care of any unintended consequences that may occur that we don't know what could happen. With that, I ask that this amendment be adopted.
Speaker Pro Tem for a question.
Representative Green, if we were to pass your amendment, will you then vote for the bill?
Yes.
Great. Thank you.
Representative McMakin? Representative McMakin, on your objection. Rep. Green, you're going to be able to close on your amendment. Rep. McMakin?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Madam Clerk. Members, I object to the amendment. Pretty clear on the exact statement he said. It kicks the can down the road. I didn't come here to kick the can down the road. I would ask you object and vote no to the amendment. Thank you.
Okay, members, Representative Green offered up an amendment which Representative McMakin objected to. All those in favor of the amendment vote yes. All those opposed vote no. Madam Clerk, open machines. Vote machines, members. Weibel, no. Wilder, no. Vote machine, members. Members, are you through voting? Clerk will close the machine. 31 yeas, 63 nays, and the amendment fails. Rep. Noel for the floor.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. You can leave.
Rep. Noel.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. I rise in strong opposition to SB 256. This is not simply a policy disagreement. This is a constitutional line that we are crossing. At its core, this bill raises a fundamental question. Can the legislature change the rules of an election after it has been decided and after an official has already been sworn into office? Because that is exactly the situation before us. Calvin Duncan was elected by the people of New Orleans. If SB 256 is applied in a way that affects a sitting official, we are stepping directly into dangerous constitutional territory. We all understand the basic principle of fairness. You do not change the rules of the game after the game has been played. Elections are no different. Once the people have voted, the outcome is not something we get to revisit through legislation. Retroactive laws, especially those that impair a vested right, are deeply disfavored under the Constitution. If there are questions about whether someone is eligible to hold office, our legal system already provides a path to resolve that. It's called the courts. It's called due process. And this bill attempts to bypass that process. It substitutes legislative action for judicial administration. And that should concern every one of us. As Representative Glorioso said, stand up for our rights. Because today they are coming for this right, tomorrow they are coming for yours. In this instance, today it's one office holder, but tomorrow it could be you. Another issue I find concern with is the separation of powers. We are lawmakers, not judges. Determining whether someone lawfully holds office is a judicial function. When we pass a law that effectively decides that question for a specific situation already in motion, we are stepping outside of our lane as the legislature and stepping into the role of the judiciary. That is not how our system was designed to work. But perhaps the most troubling issue is that this is a risk of being a bill of attainder. For my non-lawyers, if a law is crafted in a way that effectively singles out one person for adverse treatment, it risks being challenged as a bill of attainder, which is expressly prohibited by the U.S. Constitution. The prohibition against legislative punishment without trial is not a technicality. It is a safeguard against exactly this kind of overreach. Members, even if it's not the intent, it is the effect that the courts will examine. And the effect here is clear. The author keeps saying that this is not targeted at Clerk Calvin Duncan, but he is the only person adversely affected because this does not allow for Mr. Duncan and for Ms. Chelsea to run for the Clerk of Orleans. Beyond the legal issues, we must consider the precedents. We have talked continuously in this building about election integrity. But if we pass this bill, we are telling people of Louisiana that their vote is not final and that it does not count, and it can be changed because the legislature can come back after the fact and alter the outcome. That is a dangerous message. It weakens confidence in elections. It opens the doors for future legislatures to revisit outcomes that they do not like or stop people who they do not like from taking office. And it puts this body in the position of picking winners and losers after the people have spoken. The people of New Orleans elected Mr. Calvin Duncan to be the chief elections officer and for Ms. Chelsea Richard Napoleon to be the clerk of Civil District Court. We did not elect a clerk of Orleans. Now let's talk about the cost. This bill will be challenged. And when it is, the state will be forced to defend it at taxpayers' expense with significant constitutional vulnerabilities. After the taxpayers just paid for the election where Mr. Calvin Duncan was elected by 68% of the vote. We should not be passing laws that we know will end up in court and are unlikely to withstand scrutiny. Members, this is not about just one person. This is about protecting the integrity of our Constitution, the separation of powers, and the will of voters. If there are concerns about qualifications or eligibility, we have lawful constitutional ways to address them. but this bill is not one of them. We cannot rewrite the outcome of an election after the polls have closed or after the oaths have been taken. SB 256 asks this body to do something the Constitution does not allow, to rewrite the outcome of an election after the people have spoken. This bill also does not provide to reimburse Darren Lombard, Calvin Duncan, or their donors the over $400,000 that they spent on qualifying and running this election for a position which will no longer exist. And I have another point. This $25 million we keep talking about that the clerk of court, a civil district court has in her coffers, that money has been saved over 20 years and has been dedicated for the building of a new civil district court on land which was a part of a land swap agreement between the city of New Orleans and the state of Louisiana that I passed through this body 2 years ago. This bill has a lot of constitutional challenges. The main one is trampling on the rights of the voters of Parish Orleans. And I rise and I respectfully ask you to vote no on SB 256.
Rep. Mina for the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As my colleague and friend, Representative Knox, noted, the criminal district court is in my district, District 23, and the civil district court is in his district. The one thing I truly believe in life is that it's not about what you do, but it's about how you do it. And I do have a great deal of respect for this body in how we just handled this debate. We didn't cut off debate. We did the difficult thing and allowed the opposing voices to actually express themselves. That is the difficult thing. The difficult thing also is in having difficult conversations, as Representative McMakin said during his testimony. It would have been difficult for him to come to a legislator from Orleans Parish and actually be able to have that conversation. But difficult conversations are why we are here, and that respect has to be afforded to each and every member of this body. I remember a year or two ago, I had an idea, and I won't go too deep into it, but it would have affected another parish. And the person from the other parish, who's a dear friend of mine, called me on it. And, you know, I apologized to him and the other representatives from that parish because the one thing I never want to do to any of the 104 of you that I'm honored to serve in this body with is disrespect y'all. And I'm pro good government. I'm pro reasoned scalpel cutting, but this is not reason. This is not a scalpel. This is an axe. So I rise in opposition to this bill, and I hope that some of you will join me. Thank you.
Rep. Mandy Landry for the floor.
Oh, I didn't know I could do that. Thanks. Seems the theme of the day is ignore Orleans legislators. Just like Calvin, we were elected too, and we all represent 44,000 people. But anyway, I asked Calvin if I could read part of his speech during committee because most of you weren't there or don't know much about him, so I cut it short. This is from Calvin. He said, on November 15th, 2025, 59,000 citizens participated in our democracy by exercising one of the fundamental rights we all have as United States and Louisiana citizens. As informed citizens, they cast their vote for who they wanted to be elected. 38,681, that's 68.2%, voted for me, Calvin Duncan. Why did I run for office? When I was incarcerated, I wrote the clerk of court in New Orleans to try to get records, to try to find out what my lawyers were doing on my case. I could not get them. I studied, I read law, I tried to help others. None of us could get our records. Fast forward, I got out in 2011. I went to the criminal district court. I couldn't get anyone's records, and I understood why, because the people running the office didn't understand how withholding our records was affecting our cases. I said, I'm going to get myself together. I'm going to get my education, and I did that. I went to Tulane. I got my paralegal certificate, an associate's degree, and a bachelor's degree. Then I went to law school. In 2023, I received my JD from Lewis and Clark, and I came home to continue to help others access their records. I vowed that when this position became open, I was going to run, and when it became open, I qualified. I started running, I educated people, and I was elected. My request, with all due respect, is that the people who voted for me, they too believed in democracy. They believed that their votes were going to count. I told them they were wrong when they said their vote wouldn't count. I told them my story. I picked myself up and I educated myself, and some of them went and registered to vote. This bill tells them exactly what they had believed before I talked to them, that their vote doesn't count. It's hard getting people to participate in democracy, and that's my request for all of you. I've done what I was supposed to do. They said this is the American dream. You pull yourself up. No matter the circumstances, you educate yourself. You be kind, you see an injustice, you do something about it. That's the American dream. With all due respect, please do not send an adverse message to those people who went out to cast a vote. It's as simple as that. I appreciate you all for giving me this opportunity, but I'm more concerned about the people who went out to vote. And with all due respect, please do not send a negative message to them that their votes did not count. Thank you.
Rep. Lorverdane.
Members, this is probably one of the most disrespectful bills that this body's seen in a long time. No floor notes, no green cards. When you look at a travesty of justice, this is what this bill's about. You've got Rep. McMakin, who is from the big city of Baton Rouge, filing a bill that affects Orleans Parish. Don't be on the wrong side of history. This bill is so wrong on so many fronts. We live in a democracy, not a dictatorship. We were elected by the people. I stand with Calvin Duncan, and I stand with the people of Orleans Parish. What is happening today in Orleans will happen in other parishes, and I don't want to be a part of that. Out of all the bills we have, this is the most despicable, diabolical, and just wrong incident. We do not file bills in our colleagues' districts. That's disrespectful. I see my colleagues in here from the Natchitoches, from DeRidder area. We had some special people here, the Mennonites from DeRidder area. I had a chance to meet them. I'm from Alexandria. But understand, I had to go see Representative Schermerhorn and Representative Owens. That's their group. I can't go beyond that. I'm going to get your two reps and let you talk to them because that's not my position. I will stand with those folks, but I can't take the lead. That's his district. I've got to respect him in his district. Mr. Duncan was elected by the people of Orleans Parish with over 68% of the vote. He walked, he campaigned, he spent money. Now we're trying to ignore those people who voted for him. Mr. Duncan was elected to the criminal clerk of Orleans Parish, but yet now we're ignoring the 38,000 votes he earned. Now we want to simply abolish the office. That's deplorable. We don't do that. We're better than that. If we want to deal with these judges and their courts, we have to at least bring everybody to the table, get data, let's talk about it. But filing a bill at the last minute, this man's supposed to get sworn in 2 weeks. We're better than that. This horrible bill will send a bad message to this state and to this country and to this world. We elect people and then we pass a bill to eliminate the position. That's wrong. The world is watching this injustice and racism at its highest level. We're better than that. I'm encouraging you all to vote against this because it's a bad bill, and this is not who we are. If we talk about love and respect, we have to vote this bill down. If you want to deal with justice, let's all sit at the table and come up with a solution. We have to look at all of the clerk of courts, not just pick on Orleans. I'm going to stand with Orleans because it's wrong, because I don't want you to do that in Rapides, these other parishes. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Rep. Knox, the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I don't have any prepared remarks, so forgive me if I ramble a little too much. Most of you know that I served in the United States Marine Corps combat. I served fighting for democracy. I served overseas fighting for democracy. And I am so disappointed today that I am here on American soil fighting for democracy. I get beat up a lot, members, from the first moment I got elected, March 2023. I first was appointed to civil law. And it was the second meeting, I believe it was, where Representative Jordan was bringing a bill to end slavery. And it was a heated debate. There were a lot of speakers. And what I remember, because my PTSD makes me remember things more than probably normal. What I remember from that meeting was that Representative Mike Johnson had gotten attacked from a speaker at the table. And he pushed back and told that person she did not know his heart and she did not know his character. I followed him and said to him and her that in my whole experience in this body, I believe everyone to be good and decent people. And I got beat up about that in 2023. I repeated that subsequent publicly, and I said, all 104 individuals with whom I serve are good and decent people. I'm not judging their heart. I'm not calling into question their character. I'm basing it on my experience with each and every one of you. And I remember very vividly when Representative Slagle stood at this very spot and we were in a heated debate when she was bringing anti-drug, mental health bills, and things of that nature. And when she was getting pushback on her bill, she proclaimed, I know why I'm here. I know why I'm here. And just 2 weeks ago, I heard my colleague, Representative LaFleur, as she was receiving an award, she called into question, does she really deserve to be here? And she proclaimed, I deserve to be here. Why? Because God has ordered my steps to be here. My steps are ordained to be here. And it was last session that my seatmate and I, right after adjournment, and it was just he and I here. And we were reminiscing on our journey to how we got here. And we both looked at the board. And he gave me with specificity where he fought with his name on this board. And we were conversing and saying each and every time we come in this building, we're both in awe. Each and every time we walk in the rotunda, we're both in awe. And when I looked over to him, tears were welling in his eyes. And tears started welling in my eyes because we both knew our steps were ordered to be here. And we could not fathom by a legislative action our names would be removed from this board. in these United States for which I bear the scars, seen and unseen. And so 2 grown men sitting in this chamber, in awe of the American dream, in awe of democracy, and at its core, the right to vote, and to have our colleagues, our good and decent colleagues, take it away from 68% of a population who was inspired by a man, not just any man. It's bigger than the man, but not just any man. If you knew this man's story, you would understand why so many people were inspired by him. And I submit to you, I couldn't have the joy and humility that he has. I have never heard him say one ill word about being in prison for 28 years and 6 months. I never heard him curse his imprisoner, not one time. That particular election I was going to stay out of. That particular election I wasn't going to make any endorsement. But when I heard his story, of being in hell for a crime he didn't commit, when I heard his story, and I continue to see this man smile each and every day, in spite of all of this, and only because of God's amazing grace that he has gotten to where he is today. Only because of God's amazing grace, this man hasn't committed suicide. Only because of God's amazing grace, we're all here. We all have our different journeys of how we got here. We're all here because somebody paved the way for us to be here. So members, as you take this vote, please keep in mind that we're tinkering with democracy. It's New Orleans today. It may be your district tomorrow. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Rep. Terry Landry for the floor.
Mr. Speaker, members, let me first say I share the sentiments of Rep. Knox. I almost waived my comments because he said it so eloquently, but like he said, our steps are ordained and we are here for a reason. So let me be clear. I understand the need for efficiency. I understand the desire to have all of our parishes aligned and be in the same format. That's a fair observation. That's a fair conversation I'm willing to have. But not like this. Not at this moment, and not at this cost. Because this is not happening in a vacuum. The people of New Orleans and Orleans Parish just voted. They made a decision under the law as it exists today, not tomorrow, not on May 3rd, not whenever the governor decides to sign it. They chose who they wanted to serve in a position that is still in existence today. And now, after the ballots have been cast, after voices have been heard, we are now being asked to change not only the rules, but the laws. We are now being asked to silence 38,681 voices. Not one or two, not 100, 38,681 voices who we, if this bill passes, are sending a message that their vote doesn't count. This is no longer about efficiency. When we are willing to wipe out that number of votes. This is about whether or not we will respect elections even when we don't like the outcome. If this were truly about alignment, we would have done this years ago, and voters would have known exactly what they were voting for. But doing it now is not about reform. It feels like revision. And members, when we, as government, start rewriting the rules after people have made their decisions and cast their ballots, that's not efficiency. That's an invasion of trust, an erosion of trust. We cannot continuously tell each voter that your voice matters and then turn around and reshape their decision when it becomes inconvenient. So efficiency requires us to override the will of the people. Then what we're really streamlining here today is democracy itself. So members, this is not a line we should cross. And I respectfully ask you to vote in opposition of this bill. Thank you.
Rep. Chasson.
I'm going to break from speaking the way I normally speak. I'm going to talk like I'm from Lafayette, so y'all bear with me for a second. So last night I drive home, and my daughter sits on my lap, and we're watching TV, and I have my laptop on my lap. She asked me, "What you doing?" I said, "I'm going over my bills." She said, "You're always going over your bills." I said, "I know, Daddy, babe, I know." She said, "Well, what does this one do?" Because I had it up. I said, "Well, this is about a curator, and it's about with disabilities." And she keeps watching cartoons and then asks me as I go to the next one, she says, "Well, what does this one do?" And I say, "Well, this one is about alligator hunting. This is the order with which I'm going down my votes." And she said, "Alligator hunting?" She thought that was so interesting. As she continues watching Bluey, I get to this bill, and she says, "Well, what does this one do?" And I try my best to explain it to her, but I give her just a small little caption of, well, they're getting rid of a position in New Orleans. And she asked me why. Now, I didn't have a response for her, y'all. I didn't have a response for her. I didn't. She said, "Well, why are they doing that?" I said, "Well, because they can." And that was tough, y'all. She said, "Why are they doing that?" I said, "Because they can, baby." And she asked me, she said, "Are they your friends?" And the simplicity with which she can articulate this still bothers me. I said, "Yeah, baby." She said, they're nice to you?" I said, "Yeah." She said, "Well, then why are they doing this?" I said, "Because they can, baby." I said, "As you get a little older, you'll understand." I said, "That's why Daddy says he loves this and he hates this at times." So my question to everybody, because I think I know how everybody's going to vote. I think I know how everybody's going to vote. When it boils down to it, my daughter's 8. Your 8-year-old version of yourself. Rewind time. We played outside, we cut up, we had a good time, and I didn't know I was black until somebody told me I was black. You didn't know you were white until they told you were white. You didn't know you were a Democrat until they told you were a Democrat, and you didn't know you were a Republican until someone told you were a Republican. All you did was couldn't wait for me to walk outside so you can come outside and play with me. And inherently, my 8-year-old daughter, just the simplicity of it is just this. I'd rather you come and tell me that this is the way you're going to vote because somebody told you have to vote like this. I'd rather you come and tell me this is how my politics are for my particular district, so I got to vote for it. But the people in your district will still vote for you whether you vote for this or don't vote for this. Because the people in your district don't care what's happening in Orleans Parish unless you're from Orleans Parish. So, when it all boils down to it, your 8-year-old version of yourself, you just wouldn't do it. And we all know you wouldn't do it. It's winning a competition and then the principal deciding that you didn't win the competition. Everybody would be upset and you'd be floored. So even though I know how most of you are going to vote today, just keep this in mind going forward, because the 8-year-old versions of yourself wouldn't be too happy with the votes that you take today.
Rep. Marcel? Rep. Marcel?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. I rise in opposition of this bill for various reasons. Something that I had not heard anybody talk about was the criminal clerk is responsible for the elections. We're talking about eliminating a position, and a few days later, there would be an election. We already got closed primaries that nobody is familiar with. We're going to add on top of that the fact that we're removing a position that normally takes care of those elections in Orleans Parish. Which one of you all would allow that to happen in your district at the time of an election, especially when you're being elected? But of course, you're not on the ballot. But I tell you what, we need to think and rethink what we're doing in this building, what's right and what's wrong. I asked Representative McMakin, has this ever been done before? Show me one time where we have eliminated a position and caused it to change in 3 weeks. And he didn't have any example for that. That's because it has never, ever been done. Because it is not right to do it. It is not right for someone from Baton Rouge and West Monroe to go and tell New Orleans what to do in their elections. And somebody asked me when I went to support Mr. Calvin Duncan at the hearing, well, what were you doing down there in the picture with him? You're from Baton Rouge. Absolutely, because it's New Orleans today, and it could be Baton Rouge tomorrow. And I don't want us setting precedents that we're doing right now. I want us to look at what we're doing. The man was duly elected. He was sworn in, and we should allow him to be seated. If you want to change the way the system is with the clerks of courts in New Orleans, you can do that over time. This seems to be very, very targeted. Unless you're blind, you gotta see that this is targeted. Nowhere else has been done. No other time has it been done. And we're gonna be the first in Louisiana. We usually last in a whole lot of things. I certainly hope we're not first in doing this. Getting rid of someone's position that they were duly elected to. And I didn't see any amendment on here to pay him his money back. So what does he do about that? You spent your hard-earned money and your donors' money to be elected to something that somebody is going to eliminate. Nobody talked about the fact that the city council members, each one of them, we like to talk about that all the time, especially in municipal, and we ask people, do you have the permission of the council? Every council member have opposed this bill in New Orleans. What does that say? That what New Orleans wants to do does not matter? All of them have opposed this bill, and it's not right. We're going backwards, and we shouldn't be voting on anything even remotely like this. We got a lot of stuff we need to do, and this isn't one of them. So I stand up here and vehemently oppose this bill and the elimination of Mr. Calvin Duncan's position, because the world is watching us. The world is watching us. And they're going to want to know, your children are going to want to know, what role did you play today? Please join us in opposing this bill.
Representative Moore.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm standing up here right now because today has been a rough day for me right now. And yesterday, I know how I felt when we stood up for Shreveport, and when we heard about the situation about Shreveport. I know what was in my heart. It was just, my heart was heavy, very heavy. And just a few minutes ago, we did the same thing, and my heart was very heavy. And now, I don't know if I can say very heavy or just, I can't describe it. I had problems with the bill, but then when Representative Green introduced an amendment that extended the time before you could make this decision or go through the transition, and we still said no, that really cut my heart too on this. So I'm going to be driving home in a few minutes, maybe about 4 hours, 3.5 hours. And yes, I'm going to cry out to God because this is kind of taking me back. But I'm not going to lose faith. All I can do is do the best I can. I was not asked, and whether you all believe this or not, the people and who I'm hearing about it, we think it was a reason behind all of this. I tend to believe that. But I'm going to go and I'm going to just cry out to God and ask Him to help me understand some of the things we do. I know we change laws all the time when situation. This morning at one of my, on the committee meeting, we changed laws and so forth. So I know we do it, and we do it at the time that we might feel like it's appropriate. I'm not blaming any of you all. You do what you want to do, but I'm just telling you how I feel. How I feel. And I'm going to go these 4 hours, and I'm going to cry the whole time. The whole time I'm on that road. And I'm going to let God know that even though I'm broken, even though I feel hurt, I feel disappointed, I'm just going to let Him know I'm still going to trust you. I don't care. I'm going to still trust you. And so I just had to say that because I know how I'm feeling right now when I hear you all say what the things that you've said. So, justice for all. Justice for all.
Rep. Jordan for the floor. Rep. Jordan for the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. My heart certainly hurts for the members of the caucus today. And I think you've heard the emotion. And sometimes I try to come here and appeal to you in emotion, but today is not going to be one of those days. Because just as my heart hurts for them, my heart hurts for John Willis Menard, who in 1868 was the first African American elected to the U.S. House, here from Louisiana, District 2, and was denied the right to sit. Or just as it hurts for P.B.S. Pinchback, our former governor, the first African American governor in the United States, who was elected to the U.S. Senate twice, in 1873 and 1874, and was denied his seat. I don't usually disagree with some of my members, but I know Representative Laura Dane said that we are better than that. That's yet to be proven. That's just aspirational. The votes on the board will show whether we are better than that. And right now, frankly, I don't have that confidence. You know, in 1964, the Supreme Court said the right to vote freely for the candidate of one's choice is the essence of a democratic society. That vote has been taken, and now the attempt is to take it away. With that, I'm going to tell you that the Louisiana Legislative Black Caucus rises in strong and unequivocal opposition to this bill. Along with our friends at the Democratic Caucus, I hear you. This is a deliberate nullification of a democratic election, and frankly, it follows a pattern of legislative manipulation that Louisiana's black community has endured for more than 150 years. As you've been told, in November, the people of Orleans Parish elected Calvin Duncan, a landslide mandate from a majority black electorate. And he's scheduled to take oath again, as been said, on May 4th of this year. But with the amendment that's been put on this bill and the bill itself, the attempt is to take that away from him on May 3rd of 2026. When I spoke to the author of this bill, I asked him why that date. He was very clear. We want to be able to abolish the office before he can take seat, because then there would be no seat for him to take. That came from him in committee. But to understand what this legislature is being asked to do today, we must certainly understand what this legislature's predecessors did before. And it takes me back to Reconstruction. The period following the Civil War represents one of the most remarkable democratic experiences in American history, and one that was most violently dismantled. The Reconstruction Acts of 1867 and 1868 reorganized the former Confederate states, for which Louisiana is one, and required them to ratify the 14th Amendment as a condition to the readmission to the Union. In Louisiana, black men voted in mass numbers for the first time. They served in the state legislature, they held local offices, and they shaped public policy in ways the antebellum order had made unthinkable. Louisiana's 1868 Constitution was among the most progressive state constitutions in American history. It guaranteed universal male suffrage, prohibited racially segregated public schools, and we were one of the first in the nation to have public schools, and established civil equality before the law. Black Louisianians served as lieutenant governor, state treasurer, and superintendent of public education. And in New Orleans, the very city whose criminal court is at issue today, black political power was real, visible, and it was consequential. White supremacist resistance was immediate and systematic. The Mechanics Institute massacre of 1866 killed dozens of blacks and Unionist delegates before Reconstruction had fully begun. The Colfax Massacre of 1873, which is the deadliest act of racial violence in Reconstruction in America, left over 100 black Louisianians dead after a disputed election for a local office in Grant Parish. The perpetrators were never convicted. The message was clear. Black electoral victories would be answered with blood. But violence alone was insufficient to permanently suppress black political participation. The architects of white supremacy understood that durable suppression required law. They needed this machinery of the state itself. By 1898, Reconstruction was long over. Federal troops had withdrawn. The Compromise of 1877 had ended federal protection for black voting rights in exchange for a disputed presidential election. Louisiana's white political class convened a constitutional convention with a single, openly stated purpose: the permanent elimination of black political power. The delegates were not subtle about their intentions. The convention president, Ernest Krushnick, told the assembled delegates on that opening day, "We come here to establish the supremacy of the white race." And of course, that was the same convention in which we created 9 unanimous juries, which we recently overturned. The convention's work was not to govern, it was to exclude. The mechanisms they employed became the template for the disfranchisement across the South. Poll taxes requiring payment as a condition of voter registration. Literacy tests administered selectively and arbitrarily by white registrars who could fail black voters on any pretext while qualifying illiterate white voters under the grandfather clause. The grandfather clause itself, exempting from literacy and property requirements any man whose grandfather had been eligible to vote before 1867, which was the year that black men first received the franchise in Louisiana. White primaries excluded black voters from the only election that mattered in a one-party state, ensuring that no black candidate could win regardless of the election results. Residency and registration requirements structured to maximize disqualification of the black population. As you see, what we're doing here is not new. It's from an old playbook. The results were immediate and they were catastrophic. In 1896, I want you to listen closely, if nothing else to this, there was 130,000 black registered voters in Louisiana. By 1900, only 4 years later, but 2 years after the convention, there were 5,320. We went from over 130,000 to 5,000. An electorate had not been erased by violence, but by law. The 1898 convention is one of the most successful acts of voter suppression in American history, and its effects persisted for 70 years until the Voting Rights Acts of 1865. But the convention's methods extended beyond voter registration. The delegates restricted local government, abolishing offices, as we're attempting to do today, redrawing jurisdictions, consolidating functions, again, as we're trying to do today, in ways specifically designed to remove black office holders who had survived earlier suppression efforts. When you could not prevent black voters from electing black officials, you eliminated the offices that they would have held. Again, when you could not prevent black voters from electing black officials, you eliminated the offices those officials would have held. It's the same thing that we're doing today. The history of Louisiana after Reconstruction is a history of legislative ingenuity in the service of racial exclusion. When one mechanism of suppression was struck down or circumvented, another was constructed. The tools changed, the purpose did not. Among the most insidious post-Reconstruction techniques was the legislative abolition of offices.
Jordan, I need you to start wrapping it up, please.
That's fine. Folks, this is a direct violation of Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act. Section 2 does not require proof of discriminatory intent. The question is whether, under the totality of the circumstances, the political process is equally open to minority voters in a sense that they have an equal opportunity to participate in the political processes and elect representatives of their choice. When you use that test and apply it to this bill, Louisiana has one of the most extensive documented histories of official racial discrimination in voting in any state in the Union from 1898 through the present. Orleans Parish has a majority black population and a documented history of racial polarized voting. The abolition of an office is no new technique. It's something that's very old, and Calvin Duncan won with 68% of the vote. Finally, the Legislative Black Caucus was founded on the principle that the rights won by generations of sacrifice on the streets of Selma, in the courtrooms in New Orleans, in the churches and community halls of every Louisiana parish must be actively defended in every session of this legislature. Those rights are not self-executing. They require witnesses, they require voices. They require legislators willing to stand on the floor of this chamber and say, not here, not today, not in our names. We are those legislators. We stand here today as a direct legislative descendants of the men and women who fought the poll tax, challenged the grandfather clause, survived other racial discriminatory committees that were here in Louisiana, and marched for the Voting Rights Act. We know this playbook, we've seen the moves before, and we will not pretend that the selection of that May 3rd date to run out the clock and abolish this position is anything other than what it is. We call on every member of this House, of every race, of every party, in every district, to ask a single question before casting your vote. If the voters of your district had elected to someone by 68%, and a bill to abolish that person's office the day before they were sworn in, would you call that democracy? We call upon the governor to veto this bill if it passes, and to signal clearly that Louisiana will not be governed by the tactics of Louisiana in 1898. We call upon the United States Department of Justice Civil Rights Division to monitor this legislation and stand ready to act if it becomes law. More specifically, we call upon the Supreme Court to monitor this legislation as they consider how they are going to rule as they contemplate their decision in Calais.
Representative Jordan.
And we call upon Calvin Duncan, the duly elected clerk of the Criminal District Court for the Parish of Orleans, to know that this caucus stands with him and with the 68% of Orleans Parish voters who chose him, and with the principle that this state and this democracy, elections must mean something.
Okay, the member's out of time. Rep. Taylor for the floor.
The arc of
Rep.
Martin
Taylor
Luther
for the
first
floor.
is long, but
Rep. Taylor for the floor. Rep. Jordan, you can keep talking. Rep. Taylor for the floor. Rep. Taylor, do you want to be recognized? Rep. Taylor for the
Thank you,
floor.
Mr. Speaker. And basically, I'd like to say that since I've been here, and I haven't been here as long as some of the other legislators, but I am history. I have worked to get to where I am, and I feel like since I got here, I found out that even though I might disagree with some of the positions that other people take, they are not my enemies. Everybody is entitled to have their own opinion. But presently, I feel like I can relate to people because I'm a female, and I've been the first female to do a lot of things, and there are females here. At one time, we couldn't vote. Females could not vote. At one time, we couldn't be doctors. At one time, we couldn't be lawyers. But because of democracy, because of people leaving England, coming to America, because they could not do certain things in England, this is why they came, the Plymouth Rock, and came to America. We should not be trying to change the terms and go backwards and forget about what brought us into these chambers. Representative Billings, I understand another representative, we are the first females in 2024 to be sworn in. So why would we want to retrogress? We want to take away people's right to vote? I don't think that's an ethnic issue. I think that's an issue for all of us. Females have overcome not being able to vote. I think it's time that we come together on issues where we can. This is not a precedent that we want to set. We don't want to set this precedent and turn back the hands of time and not allow people to vote or allow people's votes not to matter. And I think that's basically what I wanted to say. I learned a lot since I've been here in this legislature, but I do know every individual here should vote on behalf of the same rules for everybody. New Orleans is the catalyst place. People don't just fly here to come to, they go to Lafayette, they go to other places, but they come to New Orleans. We cannot let the citizens of New Orleans down or try to downtread them in certain things. New Orleans is the premier city of the state of Louisiana, and we need to make sure that we support the citizens of New Orleans.
Rep. Green for the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I echo a lot of the things that have already been stated by my colleagues and members. I want you to understand that I'm a big believer and lover of democracy and the democratic process. It's not lost on me that as a member of the minority party, every single day that I and members of this caucus walk through in this hallowed ground, a hall of democracy, that more times than not, on most votes, we are on the losing end. But I'm okay with that, because at the end of the day, democracy prevailed. We had elections. The people spoke who they wanted to represent their districts. All 105 of us were each individually elected to represent our communities. I rise in opposition to this bill because, in my humble opinion, it abuses the power of this body to diminish the meaning of the people's vote. It says to the public that you may elect your leader, but if those in power are unhappy with your choice, they can just simply hollow out that office before the elected person ever truly serves. Members, we should remember that none of us are here permanently, that none of us are entitled to these seats. We are simply temporary stewards of that democracy that existed before us, and that we must do everything we can to ensure that it survives after us. And if you're honest with yourself, with this vote today, are we doing that? Are we strengthening democracy, or are we undermining it? Because that is stewardship. Stewardship means understanding that power is borrowed. It's not owed. It means that resisting the temptation to bend the rules when doing so is politically expedient. It means honoring not just the mechanics of an election, but the substance of self-governance. Because when government acts to weaken an elected office on the eve of a new term, it does not merely target one individual, it sends a message that the people's voice can be undermined after the fact. And members, that is not stewardship. That's a temporary abuse of power, and I will tell you that when our time is done here, history will not judge that kindly. So this bill asks this legislature to do just that. To eliminate an elected office in Orleans Parish on the eve of when a duly elected candidate is scheduled to take office, and that should trouble every single person here. And that concern is magnified because of who the individual is, Calvin Duncan, who served 28 years in jail. Members, God gives us one life to live. Can you fathom spending nearly a third of your life in jail for a crime that you did not commit? And there's been many talk about semantics as to whether the individual, Mr. Duncan, was exonerated or not. At the end of the day, he was charged and convicted with first-degree murder. That sentence was later vacated. If you honestly thought that he committed that crime, he would be in jail. He is the epitome of what we aspire to be, that you are not bound by the circumstances that life throws at you, that you are able to overcome those experiences. This man survived a wrongful conviction, born of the very failures that deeply undermine the public's confidence in the system. An unreliable witness identification, undisclosure of critical evidence, and official misconduct. Members, we are better than this. I hope that you can, between now and when we vote, you will do the right thing. In your short term here in office, I hope that in your short years of here, of 12 years, if we're all lucky, that you can look back on this moment and say that you did the right thing, as opposed to a lifelong regret. please take that opportunity to do the right thing. I humbly ask that you vote no, and we still have opportunity to do the right thing. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I appreciate your time.
You have a right to close. Members, please hold, sir. No, sir. Someone claps again, take them out.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, close will be short and to the point. I'm sorry for the lack of leadership that this building didn't take care of this many years ago. That's why we're here today. We have to do something the legislators before us should have done. My district, every one of your districts and parishes, besides one, has 2 clerks. We're aligning them with every other parish, every other district in the state of Louisiana. Leadership is not easy, especially when we have to follow up on what they have failed to do before us. I'm sorry that they used those words against you and against me, been called some rough things. That's okay, because leadership is not easy. But it's what's doing fair back in your districts that are supporting one other district and one other parish that no one else has to do in the state of Louisiana. And if I'm thinking about my 8-year-old self or my niece of why I did this, and I tell my younger self and I tell her, there's only one place in Louisiana that does it this way. And we're trying to put that in line with every other district and every other parish and be efficient and be effective and serve everyone in our state. That I'm going to vote for this today, I'm going to vote for it tomorrow, and I'm going to vote for this bill the rest of my life. And members, I ask you to vote yes and support this bill. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Rep. Green, why do you rise? Will 20 members join Rep. Green in a lockout? Madam Clerk, open machines. A lockout is obvious. Members, vote your machines and your machines only. Quorum call, members. Vote your machines and your machines only. Quorum call, members. Phelps, McMakin. Members, vote your machine and your machine only. Clerk will close the machine. 91 members present and a quorum. President McMakin moves final pass the bill. Many of you favor vote yea. Those opposed vote nay. Madam Clerk, open machines. Members, vote your machines. Vote your machine, members. Vote your machine. Members, are you through voting? Members, are you through voting? Clerk will close the machine. 63 nays, 28 nays, and the bill finally passed. Rep. McMakin moves without title. Lay that motion on the table without objection, so order.